Alaska is the epitome of emptiness. Nowhere today is our need as urban men and women to come to terms with the natural world more sharply in focus. This is a story of modern man and bears. Once more than half of North America was grizzly country. Since the white man came, most of the surviving bears now live far from human habitation among the wide valleys and mountains of Alaska and Canada. Most Alaskans live in grizzly country, and in the summer thousands go there to visit the bears. When they do so, they enter the realm of a large and powerful predator. During the caribou rut in autumn, the bears demonstrate their cunning and power. They watch the caribou from a distance. They can't risk attacking large, well-armed animals in such a tight herd. A couple of large cubs show an interest. As they stand for a better look, the herd moves nervously away, though in fact they have nothing to fear from the bears. There are other, more agile predators in the park. Wolves are not numerous, but they're better equipped to attack caribou than the lumbering bears. They watch for the older bulls, exhausted by the stress of continual combat. The bears watch too. They know that a weary bull who has been attacked by wolves is vulnerable. When a bear comes on the scene, the wolves retreat, leaving the wounded caribou to its fate. The bear's year starts in April, when the snow begins to retreat up the mountains. Mothers and cubs and lone males, too, crawl drowsily from the dens where they've spent the winter, stretching and rolling in the spring sunshine, far from the haunts of humanity. The first necessity is food. All that's available is roots and dried grass from the mountainside in front of the cave which served as their den. Grumpy old males may look on cubs as potential prey. A mother ushers hers away down the mountain. You can see her joy in the fresh air and the freedom. Spring comes late and slow at these latitudes. All over Alaska, the bears are emerging into the light. 2 or sometimes 3 cubs are born in the den during winter. These are a few months old, dependent on their mother for milk. She can still find a few sweet, overwintered berries, revealed as the snow retreats, and she's always alert for signs of a ground squirrel, an important addition to her diet. With her powerful forepaws, she can dig deep into the squirrel's burrow system. While Mother digs, the cubs stay close to her for food and safety. They have plenty of time for play, exploring this wide and wonderful new world. It's still too early in the year for them to see their first human beings. Here in Denali National Park, their only real enemy would be another bear, a male who would kill them as a prelude to mating with their mother, to sire his own offspring. She would rather protect her existing investment. The cubs will stay with their mother until they're more than 2 years old. She leads them through her domain, keeping a close eye on them in case they lag behind or wander away. A bear is an excellent mother and often shares her food, but one too many interruptions can make her irritable. At 4 months, the cubs are on a mixed diet of milk and solids. They won't be fully weaned for another year or more. Their role in life at present is to take exercise and grow in strength and agility, or to put it another way, to play. There are over 30,000 grizzly bears in Alaska and less than 1,000 in the rest of the United States. This makes Alaska a favorite destination for sportsmen, to whom a large animal is still something to be killed. One such sportsman has traveled 3,000 miles at considerable expense to fulfill a lifetime's ambition. He's come to Admiralty Island, where with the proper permits, it's perfectly in order to kill a bear.
Ah, that's great, George.
Thank you.
Yeah, with a lot of fiddling around with that, we did it. That's good.
Nice.
Yeah, that looks good. See, a little rub here, eh? Some of the guard here is gone. Looks like this.
Probably in the den.
Yep, den rub, I'd say. Good shape.
Ever since Alaska became a state in 1959, all bears shot legally for sport have been tagged and their particulars recorded, including the name of the hunter. When the bear is a rug on the hunter's floor, he'll be able to relive these moments.
Size as he was coming across the stream was something to behold.
The first thing that strikes you as the bear first enters your visual field is the awesome size of the animal. Very, very beautiful, majestic. And as it strolled across the meadow, we just had to watch it for a few seconds before we thought about actually taking the animal. It's a personal question as to whether one really feels like he would be a hunter or not, one that you have to search your own soul and find. I think it primarily has to do with the experience of the hunt and with the challenge of the hunt itself.
But not everyone responds to that challenge. Stan Price lived among grizzly bears on another part of Admiralty Island for most of his long life. He came to know them as neighbors, if not exactly as friends. He never found them particularly aggressive. Provided he treated them with respect and let them go their own way, they returned the compliment.
Actually, I think they're much overrated as being such a vicious animal. I can't see that we've had any on Admiralty Island that has been attacked by the brown bears and killed.
Stan Price walked among the bears unscathed for most of this century. He had a philosophical view of hunting. He saw the licensed hunters come and go and was amused at the awe in which they seemed to hold his harmless neighbors.
You can imagine the disposition man has in a bear. He's afraid of them. And when he gets a bear in the side of that gun there, he's shaking.
At Denali National Park in Alaska, the ultimate emblem of the American wilderness is just a train ride from Anchorage.
Denali Park? Denali?
People come here in the hope of direct experience of wild grizzly bears. After Yellowstone, it's the second most visited national park in the United States, and all because of the bears.
This is a bear-resistant food container that we require people to carry their food in. Roughly half the backcountry zones in the park require the use of the bear-resistant container. Hope the weather stays with you, and good luck. Have a great trip out there. Yeah, take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Most of the visitors to Denali are content to ride along the park roads in one of a fleet of buses. But for some of the travelers, sitting in a bus isn't enough. Randy and Allison Yates have come here all the way from the plains of Ohio, and they want to get out into the open country, among the bears. They didn't know it, but they were walking into an adventure which would transform their ideas about bears. For people and bears alike, the spring in Alaska is a glorious time of year. The earth comes alive in the growing warmth of the sun. There's a wide variety of things to eat to restore the mother bear's body weight after her long winter fast, and to tempt the cubs' growing appetites. Among the other animals of the park, ground squirrels are especially important to the bears. They're a regular source of fresh meat for the adults, though in the spring sunshine it might seem churlish to mention the fact to a ground squirrel. As a primary consumer, a plant eater, the ground squirrel is a natural prey animal. Here, the grizzly is its principal predator, along with wolves and golden eagles. Dall sheep breed freely in the park, but they're too agile to fall prey to bears. A grizzly can charge at well over 30 miles per hour, but it's no leopard or cheetah. Grizzlies are far too clumsy to catch Dall sheep. In the spring, the lambs of the year play hard to develop their life-saving agility. Moose calves are nothing like as agile or quick-witted. The moose is the largest herbivore in the park. They produce their calves in spring to take advantage of the flush of new growth. For all the beauty of the calves and the solemn dignity of the adults, they cannot escape those bears which have developed the knack of hunting them. The calves are naive and rather clumsy at this early age. They wander away from their mother, exploring the new green vegetation. A few bears have learned to patrol the thickets in early spring, looking for moose calves. In some years, predation by these skilled bears can remove most of the season's young. When a bear picks up their scent, the calf's fate is sealed. is too far away to defend them. A pair of moose calves will provide food for a couple of days. After her first meal, the mother bear will cover up the carcasses and doze nearby until she's hungry again. Instinct draws the mother moose back to look for her calves, but she's too late. They're gone. The mother bear, well fed and content, covers the carcasses and settles back to suckle her cubs. A bear kill is a very dangerous place for outsiders, even for other bears. People who disturb the hidden food store are liable to be attacked. The park staff make sure that no one wanders accidentally into a bear's larder. Meanwhile, the buses ply the roads in a steady procession, showing the people the wildlife of the park and its other amenities. One of the bus drivers is Jeff Brown, who has an unusual background for someone who spends his time taking people to see bears. In 1986, he and his companion were very severely mauled by a grizzly in Glacier National Park in Montana.
I can just remember at that point being very close to a very large animal. It was, I think for a while we were face to face, and for some reason it was not biting my head. But I can remember it had awful breath. At that point, the bear was dragging me off the trail and pulling me by my elbows and his mouth, and also pulling me with the front paws. And just sort of, I had a lot of raking wounds on my legs where I was being pulled that way. And all of a sudden, something would just clamp onto my shoulder, and it felt like a big dog or something just wanted to get away from you. And I can remember the growling and all those noises right near my head and feeling like, get away.
Jeff walked 3/4 of a mile to get help. He and his friend were in hospital for a month. After 5 operations and 1,000 stitches, Jeff's body healed well. His mental state took longer to recover.
It took a little while to get used to hiking around the hills up here. And initially, I spent a lot of time studying the willows, looking for bears, and I've overcome that. And now I hike out here quite a bit. I go out in the park with groups, and I'm cautious, but I'm not unduly afraid of hiking here.
Denali is not the only park where people can get close to bears. Every summer, thousands of visitors fly into KATMAI National Park when the salmon are running. Every arriving plane load is met on the beach.
What we have here is kind of a unique situation because you're right amongst a lot of bears. And what we try to do is give you a little bit of a beach speech so you know what to do when you do encounter a bear and how to not get a bad encounter, okay? There are 2 kinds of encounters you can have here, either surprise or food related. We try to avoid both of those kinds, okay? Surprise, all that means is when you're walking down a trail or walking anywhere around here, make a lot of noise. Do a lot of talking, clap your hands. They say don't whistle, okay? That's because you start sounding like a bird. A lot of people whistle a little bit too good, and then the bears aren't forewarned. So make a lot of noise. Clap your hands, say hey bear, when you go around a corner. Hey bear. Hey bear.
When there are bears about, people tend to do what they're told. however self-consciously. In summer, the bears can catch more salmon than they can eat. There are plenty of fish for them all, no matter how deft or clumsy their fishing methods. Not 20 yards away, the bears have an appreciative audience.
That instinct keeps them catching.
The mothers divide their time between feasting and keeping an eye on their young. Although relations between the bears are more friendly here than on dry land, a really senior male, scarred from 100 fights, should not be approached by a cub or anyone. For the visitors, some of whom have traveled thousands of miles to be here, Brooks Falls is a wonderful spectacle. But the other reason for coming to Katmai National Park puts the people right in the river with the bears. It's not just the bears who come here for the salmon fishing. People like to do it too. Brooks Camp in Katmai National Park must be the easiest place in the world to catch a big salmon.
Where'd Dad go? What? Where'd he go? Come on, get you some waders. Go to the bathroom, some waders. Alligator.
Most of the fishermen use hooks without barbs so that they can release the fish more easily. They're only allowed to take one a day. Purists might argue that it's not very sporting, but there's an added element of excitement. The bears, they're everywhere. They can take as many fish as they like, and they have the right of way at all times. The fishermen are carefully briefed, like the bear watchers. They are to move slowly away from a bear, if possible, taking their fish with them. The bears must not learn that people fishing can mean a free meal. As for the bears, they have their own imperatives. A mother leads her cubs away from a prowling male for safety's sake. These movements can bring the bears close to the fishermen, which can lead to a few tense moments. So far, there have been no serious incidents at Brooks, though maintaining this record depends on the coolness of the individual fishermen and how well they remember their instructions. Walking slowly in these circumstances can take almost superhuman control. It helps to remember that if you do run, the bear is very likely to give chase. Tom Phelps had a close encounter one evening.
I was fishing, coming downstream, and a young male passed me on the right, and so I dismissed him as a problem. continued fishing, and I spotted a sow downstream from me with 3 cubs. And then she did a very unusual thing. She started running upstream, leaving her cubs behind. And so I thought, well, she wouldn't normally do that, so that other bear must still be in the area. And he was over there in that center part on the right-hand side of the stream, where I was going to climb out to avoid the sow. So I walked back up along the shore till I could see what actually was happening, and sure enough, the male stuck his head out of the bushes. So I left my rod and walked slowly upstream, across the stream, to avoid both bears. As soon as the 2 bears left the area, then I just went ahead and went back down there and went fishing again. The all clear was sounded.
Popular tradition would have expected something much more dramatic from such an encounter, but experience at Brooks shows that if people behave politely, in a way acceptable to the bears, there need be no real danger. At McNeil River, which is a state wildlife sanctuary, not a national park, the Salmon Run attracts the biggest concentration of grizzlies in the world. They share the abundance of fish with thousands of gulls. McNeil is closer to the sea than KATMAI. On most state land, hunting is one of the amenities on offer, but at McNeil River the bears are protected. Hunting them here would be like salmon fishing at Brooks. There's a family atmosphere among the assembled bears. They're never truly sociable, but here, even more than at Brooks Falls, they tolerate each other's presence for the sake of the feast. The youngsters, large and small, spar and wrestle with their brothers and sisters, but fights between adults are very uncommon. McNeil River may not offer hunting, but it does offer close encounters with bears. Small parties of photographers are taken to the riverbank to get closer than they will ever be again to North America's largest and fiercest predator.
Over there. It says lay it down, so I'm looking for it.
Even the biggest and supposedly grumpiest old males pass peaceably, close to a riveted audience.
I see the bears going down to the water.
Oh, there she's moving. The one on top of the cup following her.
The female salmon laden with eggs are a particular delicacy. Another mother brings her two to the feast. Their mothers are suspicious of strangers, even if they bring cubs. The mother in residence may well have been leaving already, but she does so with what in a grizzly passes for a gentle warning. Relations between bears and other bears are based on fear. People's feelings about bears make an awkward jump from sentimental affection for the cubs to horror at what they grow into. But after 17 years of trouble-free association between bears and people, the McNeil River experiment has shown that fear and horror are misplaced. More appropriate is respect, perhaps tinged with awe. Hunters have been known to leave this place vowing never to kill another bear. Such a change in public attitudes may be the grizzly's only hope of long-term survival. This is why the safety record of places like Denali National Park is so important for the future of bears. One fatality would set the course back years. Randy and Alison Yates came back from their walk in the wilderness sooner than they expected, having abandoned their tent after a very close encounter, one which changed their view of bears.
On the way up the Alaska Marine Highway and everything, every magazine shop you stop in, like on the boats and everything, there are always these portrayals of bears, you know, with their teeth showing, and they're all, you know, standing on their hind feet and ready to attack anything in the area. And you go into the airport. We stopped in the airport in Juneau, and they have a big stuffed bear there with, you know, standing up with its teeth showing and everything. And last night we were talking with the guy who lives in the cabin that we ended up camping outside of, and he was telling us that a bear's mouth won't even actually do that, that only a taxidermist can make a bear's mouth show its teeth like that. Last night when the bear came around the corner, she just looked over through the valley and didn't really even acknowledge that we were in the area. And the two cubs were just playing off separately at first, and then when they came together, they just played, and she rolled around their back and let the one nurse, and then just followed them into the bush. But there was no aggressive charge or anything like that, or any of the things that you would normally think a bear would do. We didn't really see any of that.
As we did hike up the hill, because I was so ready to get out of the area, I really didn't take a lot of notice, but what I did see was not a bear that was in any way really interested in us, but really the bear was pretty peaceful where it was.
Their briefing at the ranger station had had the right effect. Instead of running, they stood their ground and then made a quiet retreat. And another potential disaster became a memorable encounter. Denali sees many such encounters every year, and each one confirms the bear's new reputation as awesome, yes, but not horrific. The name grizzly, after all, refers to the grayish or grizzled tinge to the bear's coat as it grows older. It has nothing to do with the word grizzly, meaning horrific. As summer dies into fall, the bears begin to feed more urgently, harvesting berries to build up their fat reserves for winter. It's uncomfortable in the warm sunshine to be carrying so much fat, but unless they can increase their body weight by about a quarter from the day they emerge to the time when they return to the den, the bears will be hard-pressed to survive the winter. So they keep on eating. Both mother and cubs show the results as their figures become more rounded and portly. There are still ground squirrels to be found by an enthusiastic digger. The people who actually live and work among the bears have slightly different attitudes from the visitors and rangers in the national park. Bruce Burnell is a gold miner whose claim is in an enclave within the park boundary. He can tolerate living in grizzly country, but when two bears started invading his house to raid the refrigerator, he and his partner needed to break them of the habit.
Dan fired his .30-30 over the head of these two bears that showed up. They came back for second helpings, and they just stood there. They didn't run off, and the gun jammed when he tried to load another one in, and so he went back in the cabin, got his .44, and I was coming up with mine, and we had to shoot one of the bears. The other one ran off, and it's just the way it goes. It's sort of unfortunate, but once bears start eating your food, they know your cabin, they know the area, they're going to come back.
Living in grizzly country presents a different scale of problem when small children are involved. Not far away is the cabin of Rory Hamill and her daughter Rena. When a bear visited them, they called in a park ranger to see what could be done.
I was just kind of peeking
There
out.
was a bear right there.
Yeah, we heard a noise, and it just was like a, you know.
There was the bear.
What was he doing?
In the pool.
This is kind of like where he got in there and chewed it all up, and we were inside kind of peeking.
Chewing on it, and he ate some of it.
You know, when I was peeking out, I noticed that he had a collar on, so I knew we were dealing with a problem bear to some extent. But we figured he was maybe 2.5, 3 years old. That's what we
Almost
figured.
how old I am.
That's right, almost how old you
He's
are.
just 3 right now.
If the children seem to take visits from grizzlies more or less in their stride, the adults feel differently.
Bears are serious. They're not cute and cuddly. They might look so from a distance, but they have big claws and big appetites. And they're the top of the food chain. They have no respect for anything but a bigger bear. On any given day, you could be hamburger to them. It doesn't happen real often, but every year in this state, someone's mauled, someone's killed. And like I say, it's survival, and I'm not going to be one of those who gets mauled or killed.
At Kantishna, the small gold mining settlement within the park, there's a standard procedure for encouraging bears to go away. The park authorities are keen that they should be called in if there's any sign of trouble, in the hope that things won't reach the stage where the bear has to be killed. First, they use a lightweight cartridge, rather like a plastic bullet. Sometimes the bang is enough to drive the bear away. But this one was reluctant to leave such an interesting place, so the rangers tried again.
I lost the bear. What did I lose? Oh, I'm in the wrong field.
A direct hit should have done the trick. But this bear turned out to be more stubborn than most, so park biologists were called in to move him away. They darted him with an anesthetic and called up the helicopter.
Can I get one more?
There we go.
I bet.
You guys, now see, on the way back, look, that thing for a van yet?
Bears which have repeatedly caused trouble to the small communities in the parks are marked with a collar so that they can be recognized again. The helicopter will carry the offender to a distant part of the park in the hope that he'll decide to settle there and not come back. But bears are territorial animals, and eventually he'll find his way back to his home range. One hope is that he'll remember the discomfort and inconvenience of this episode and not actually invade the cabins again. It's autumn, and the moose are rutting. It's the one time when their massive antlers are anything but a hindrance to the bulls. A big bull guards his harem against all potential intruders. Some of the challengers are too small to be more than a trivial nuisance. They can be driven away with a gesture. Others present more of a challenge. Predation by bears in spring can remove most of the year's calves, keeping the moose population steady. The adults are safe from bears. Eventually, though, the stresses of old age and all that fighting will take their toll. And then the bears will have a windfall. By October, winter is clearly visible on the slopes of Mount McKinley, which towers over Denali National Park. The time is rapidly coming when there'll be no more food for the bears, so they'll have to retire for the winter. They don't hibernate in the true sense of the word. Their metabolism stays at a relatively high level. That's why they need such a store of fat if they are to survive. The spring cubs are well grown now, though they both still sport part of the white collar of babyhood. They've learned a lot in their season in the park, by exploring for themselves and by watching their mother as she guided them through the territory she knows so well. Eventually, the young male will wander away to find a place of his own elsewhere in the park. The female will probably stay within her mother's territory. But she'll suckle them both through the winter and through most of their second year, too, although sometimes, it seems, more with a sigh than with a will. She'll continue to defend them, too, against the few threats the park has to offer. Just occasionally, wolves have been known to kill bear cubs. One thing she knows, and her cubs are learning, is that in this beautiful wild place, they have nothing to fear from mankind. The people who visit the park or who live within its boundaries are very different in their attitudes to bears from the hunters who shoot them in other parts of Alaska. And the people, too, are learning that in grizzly country there is no need to walk in fear. This is the bear's territory, and a human invader must enter on the bear's terms. Though they may not be cuddly teddy bears, nor are grizzlies the blood-soaked killers of popular imagination. The first snow is dusting the bear's fur, and the last of the berries are becoming harder to find, and the time has come to take shelter from the Alaskan winter. Denali National Park is closed during winter, leaving the moose and the caribou to their own devices. They can find forage under the snow until the weather becomes too fierce. Then they will move into the shelter of wooded gullies, where moss and lichens will be their main food. A few sporadic tussles between the males gradually die away, and the herd adopts the cooperative foraging which will help it to survive into the spring. On secluded mountainsides all over the state, the grizzly bears are returning to their dens, the males and pregnant females alone, and the mothers with their cubs. The young bears are cubs no longer. With nothing left to eat and the weather getting darker and colder by the day, they will soon retire for the winter. Some of the dens are reused after being repaired, but most often the bears dig a new one each year. Wrote in 1958, "It would be fitting, I think, if among the last man-made tracks on Earth would be found the huge footprints of the great brown bear." In Alaska, as attitudes continue to change, it is becoming more likely that this will be true. Even in grizzly country, people and bears can live together.